The world spun when Julian Carter's lips brushed against mine in front of 1,000 flashing cameras. I stood frozen, a 29-year-old barista with no business being on that glitzy Manhattan stage, as Ethan Blackwood, the 32-year-old tech titan, slipped a diamond ring onto my finger. The crowd roared, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat screaming. This isn't real. It started 3 weeks earlier in Brooklyn, where I poured overpriced lattes at Brewed Awakening, a cozy coffee shop nestled between vape stores and thrift boutiques. My life was simple: rented studio apartment, late-night poetry slams, and a dream of opening my own cafe someday. I'm Javier Morales, a Latino guy with a quick smile and a knack for remembering customers' orders. Ethan Blackwood was not one of my regulars. He was a name in headlines, a ruthless CEO whose company, Blackwood Innovations, dominated the tech world with AI breakthroughs. His face was everywhere: billboards, ex-posts, magazine covers, always with that cold, calculating stare. That morning, he stormed into the shop, all sharp suit and sharper attitude. "Javier," he said, reading my name tag like it was a contract clause. "I need you to do something for me. No pleasantries, no order for a flat white. Just a demand." I raised an eyebrow, wiping down the counter. "Unless it's coffee, I'm not your guy." I shot back, half expecting him to leave. He didn't. Instead, he slid a black business card across the counter, his name embossed in gold. "Meet me at this address tonight, 8 p.m. sharp. It's worth your time." Curiosity got the better of me. That night, I found myself in a sleek penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city's glittering skyline. Ethan sat across from me, his dark skin catching the glow of a single lamp, his eyes unreadable. "I need a fiancé," he said, like he was ordering a stock trade. "My board is questioning my stability. A public scandal about my personal life could tank our stock. You're perfect, unassuming, relatable, and..." He paused, scanning me. "Convincing." I laughed, thinking it was a prank. "You want me to what? Pretend to be your fiancé? Why me?" He leaned forward, voice low. "Because you're nobody. No one will dig into your past. And I've seen you charm customers. You can sell this." The deal was simple. 6 months, public appearances, a fake engagement story. In return, he'd fund my cafe dream. $500,000, no strings attached after the contract ended. I should have walked out, but the weight of my student loans, the crumbling apartment, and that flickering dream held me there. I said yes. The next week was a blur. Ethan's PR team crafted our love story. We met at a charity gala. I'd never been to one. Bonded over shared values, he didn't know mine, and fell hard. They dressed me in suits that cost more than my rent, taught me how to smile for paparazzi, and drilled me on Ethan's favorite foods: steak, rare, and hobbies: chess, apparently. The announcement was set for Blackwood Innovations' annual gala, a star-studded event at the Met. I memorized my lines, but nothing prepared me for the moment Ethan grabbed my hand under the chandeliers, dropped to one knee, and proposed. The crowd gasped. I played along, heart pounding, as he slid the ring on. The kiss, staged, rehearsed, felt too real, his breath warm against my lips. Afterward, in a quiet corner of the gala, Ethan's mask slipped. "You did well," he said, but his voice was softer, his eyes lingering on mine. I brushed it off, reminding myself this was a job. But the internet exploded. "Ethan Blackwood's secret romance," screamed headlines. Ex-posts dissected my every move, calling me the charming barista who tamed the CEO. My co-workers at Brewed Awakening teased me mercilessly, and strangers started recognizing me on the subway. I was drowning in a life that wasn't mine. Then came the first crack in Ethan's plan. His ex, Marcus Reed, a 35-year-old lawyer with a vindictive streak, leaked texts to the press. They were from Ethan, months old, begging Marcus to stay. "You're the only one who gets me," one read. The tabloids pounced. Is Blackwood's engagement a sham? Ethan's team scrambled, but the damage was done. At our next date, a staged dinner at a rooftop restaurant, Ethan was tense, his jaw tight. "We need to sell this harder," he said, grabbing my hand across the table. His touch was firm, but his eyes betrayed something else. Fear. Maybe? I played along, laughing for the cameras, but inside, I wondered, what's he hiding? That night, alone in my apartment, I Googled Ethan. Beyond the CEO persona, I found scraps of his past. A scholarship kid from Chicago, a meteoric rise, whispers of a broken engagement with Marcus. The man behind the suit was more than a cold opportunist, but he'd buried that side deep. I stared at the ring on my finger, a prop that felt heavier every day. This was supposed to be a transaction, but something about Ethan, his rare smiles, the way he listened when I rambled about coffee blends, was pulling me in. I couldn't afford to fall for him. Not when the world was watching, and the truth was a ticking time bomb. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Meet me at the office. Noon. We need to talk." No emojis, no warmth, just classic Ethan Blackwood. I arrived at Blackwood Innovations headquarters, a glass monolith in Midtown, feeling like a fish out of water in my borrowed blazer. The receptionist, a woman with a severe bob, eyed me like I was a delivery guy who'd wandered into the wrong building. "Mr. Blackwood is expecting you," she said, her tone clipped. Ethan's office was a fortress of minimalism. White walls, a single abstract painting, and a desk that probably cost more than my car. He stood by the window, staring at the city below, his broad shoulders tense. "Marcus is escalating," he said without turning. "He's threatening to release more texts, private ones." I swallowed, my mind racing to those headlines. "What kind of private?" I asked, bracing myself. Ethan finally faced me, his expression unreadable. "The kind that could ruin me, and you, by extension," he explained in short, brutal sentences. Marcus had been his partner for 3 years, a secret kept from the public to protect Ethan's image. When they split, Marcus turned bitter, hoarding messages that painted Ethan as vulnerable, emotional. A far cry from the untouchable CEO. "If those get out," Ethan said, "the board will eat me alive. They'll say I'm unstable, unfit to lead." I wanted to ask why he cared so much about their opinion, but the raw edge in his voice stopped me. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not for his company, but for himself. "We need to double down," he continued. "More public appearances, more affection." My stomach twisted. I'd signed up for a role, not a relationship, but the line was blurring. "Fine," I said, "but I need to know something." "Why me, really? You could have picked anyone." He hesitated, then said, "You remind me of someone I used to be, before all this." His hand gestured vaguely at the office, the empire he'd built. It was the closest he'd come to opening up, and it hit me harder than I expected. The next week was a whirlwind of staged romance. We strolled through Central Park, cameras trailing us, my arm looped through his. I laughed at his dry jokes, leaned into his touch, and ignored the way my pulse raced when his hand brushed mine. The public ate it up. Ex-posts called us the power couple of the year, and my Instagram flooded with followers I didn't want. But Marcus wasn't done. At a charity auction in Soho, he cornered me in a hallway, his sharp suit and sharper smile making my skin crawl. "You think you know Ethan?" he sneered. "He's using you, kid. Just like he used me." I brushed him off, but his words lingered like poison. That night, Ethan invited me to his penthouse, not for a PR stunt, but to talk strategy. I found him on the balcony, a glass of whiskey in hand, the city sprawling below. Marcus won't stop, he said, his voice low. He knows too much. I stepped closer, the cold air biting my skin. Then tell me the truth, I said. What's he got on you? Ethan's jaw tightened, but after a long pause, he spoke. I loved him, more than I should have. And I told him things, about my past, my fears, that could destroy the myth of Ethan Blackwood. He looked at me, eyes raw. I can't let that happen. I wanted to hate him for dragging me into this, but I couldn't. There was something achingly human in his confession, a crack in the armor he wore so well. Without thinking, I reached for his hand. We'll figure it out, I said, surprising myself. His fingers tightened around mine, and for a moment, the world felt still. No cameras, no lies, just us. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. A new headline: leaked audio of Blackwood's fiancé. Is Javier hiding something too? The audio was from a poetry slam I'd done months ago. A raw piece about my struggles growing up gay in a conservative family. Someone, probably Marcus, had twisted it into a scandal, claiming I was unstable and unfit to be Ethan's partner. The internet turned vicious. Ex-users called me a gold digger, a fraud. My coworkers stopped joking and started whispering. Even my mom, who I hadn't spoken to in years, left a voicemail. Javier, what have you gotten yourself into? Ethan's team went into overdrive, spinning the story, but I felt exposed, like my soul had been ripped open for clicks. At our next date, a staged coffee run, I snapped. This is too much, I told Ethan, my voice shaking. I didn't sign up to have my life dissected. He looked at me not as the CEO, but as Ethan, the man who'd trusted me with a piece of his truth. I know, he said softly, but if you walk away now, Marcus wins, and I lose everything. His hand brushed my cheek, a gesture so gentle it stole my breath. I wanted to run, but I stayed, caught in the gravity of his gaze. The scandal grew claws. By week 4, the internet was a battlefield. Ex-posts dissected my poetry, my background, even my high school yearbook photo. Javier Morales, from barista to Blackwood's boy toy, one viral thread read. Ethan's team booked us on a morning talk show to set the record straight. I sat on a plush couch under blinding lights, Ethan's hand resting on my knee, his smile practiced but warm. The host, a perky woman named Lila, leaned in. Javier, tell us, how did you steal Ethan Blackwood's heart? I forced a laugh, reciting the script. Charity gala, instant connection, whirlwind romance. But Lila's eyes gleamed. And what about those audio leaks? Some say you're not who you seem. Ethan's grip tightened, but I answered. That was me being honest about my life. I'm not perfect, but who is? The audience clapped, but I felt like a fraud. Offstage, Ethan pulled me aside. You handled that well, he said, his voice low. Better than me. I searched his face for the lie, but all I saw was gratitude. It messed with my head. How could someone so guarded make me feel so seen? Marcus struck again that night. A grainy video surfaced on X, showing Ethan and me arguing outside a restaurant. It was from our coffee run. My words, "This is too much," taken out of context to look like a lover's spat. The headline screamed, "Trouble in Paradise?" Ethan's board called an emergency meeting, and he asked me to come. They need to see us together, he said. United. I agreed, but dread coiled in my gut. The boardroom was a shark tank. 10 suits, all eyeing me like I was the chum. The chair, a silver-haired woman named Evelyn, didn't mince words. Mr. Morales, your personal history is becoming a liability. We need stability, not drama. Ethan's voice was steel. Javier is not the problem. Marcus is, and I'm handling it. He reached for my hand under the table, his touch grounding me. But Evelyn's stare lingered. Handle it quickly, Ethan, or we will. That night, Ethan showed up at my apartment unannounced, a rare crack in his control. "I'm sorry," he said, standing in my cramped living room, his suit out of place among my thrift store furniture. "I didn't think it would get this bad." I wanted to be angry, but his vulnerability disarmed me. "Why do you care so much about what they think?" I asked. He sank onto my couch, head in his hands. "Because I built this company from nothing. If I lose it, I lose who I am." I sat beside him, close enough to feel the heat of his body. "You're more than your company, Ethan," I said. "You just don't let anyone see it." He looked at me, eyes searching, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. Not for the cameras, but for real. Instead, he stood pacing. "I'm hiring a private investigator to dig into Marcus. If he's got dirt, I'll find it." I nodded, but my heart sank. This wasn't a game I wanted to play. Digging up dirt, fighting fire with fire. But I was in too deep, and Ethan's fight was becoming mine. The next day, we attended a tech conference in San Francisco, a chance to rebrand our image. Ethan was in his element, charming investors with his vision for AI. I played the supportive fiancé, smiling at his side, but I felt like an imposter. During a break, a young reporter named Aisha pulled me aside. "I'm rooting for you," she said, her voice kind. "But be careful. Ethan's world chews people up." Her words echoed Marcus's warning, and I wondered if I was losing myself in this charade. That night, in our hotel suite, Ethan was quieter than usual. "You okay?" I asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. He loosened his tie, his guard down. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Be real with someone." My heart ached for him, for the man who'd built walls so high he didn't know how to climb them. I reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. "You're doing fine," I said, my voice soft. Our fingers laced together, and for the first time, I let myself believe this could be more than a contract. But the next morning, everything shattered. My phone lit up with a new leak. Not texts or audio, but a photo. Ethan and Marcus, kissing in a dimly lit bar, time-stamped 2 weeks before our engagement. The caption on X read, "Blackwood's betrayal. Is Javier just a pawn?" My chest tightened. I turned to Ethan, who was staring at his own phone, face pale. "Javier," he started, but I cut him off. "Is it true? Were you still with him when you picked me?" His silence was answer enough. I stormed out of the hotel, the San Francisco fog swallowing me whole. Ethan's calls buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored them, weaving through the city's steep streets until I found a quiet diner. I sat in a corner booth, staring at the fake ring on my finger, the weight of betrayal heavier than the diamond. 2 weeks. He'd been with Marcus while planning the charade, choosing me as a prop to save his image. I wanted to hate him, but the memory of his hand in mine last night made it impossible. By noon, Ethan found me. He slid into the booth, looking less like a CEO and more like a man unraveling. "I owe you the truth," he said, voice raw. "Marcus and I were done, but I met him one last time to get closure. That photo, it was a mistake, not a betrayal." I searched his eyes, wanting to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. He sighed, running a hand over his face. "Because I'm a coward. I thought I could keep you separate from my mess." His honesty hit me hard, but I wasn't ready to forgive. We returned to New York, the scandal trailing us like a shadow. Ethan's investigator uncovered dirt on Marcus, shady business deals, a history of blackmail, but Ethan hesitated to use it. "I don't want to be that person," he told me one night, sitting on my apartment's fire escape. "The one who destroys someone to save himself." I nodded, seeing the man beneath the CEO, the one who'd fought his way up from nothing and was still fighting to prove he was enough. "Then don't," I said. "Be better." He looked at me like I was his anchor, and I felt the dangerous pull of something real. We leaned into the public narrative, doubling down on our love. A photo shoot for Vogue showed us laughing in a Brooklyn loft, my head on his shoulder, his arm around my waist. The photographer called us electric, but I felt like a live wire, sparking with every touch. Off camera, Ethan was different, gentler, asking about my poetry, my dreams. One night, he showed up at Brood Awakening after closing, helping me mop the floor. "You don't have to do this," I said, laughing as he fumbled with the mop. "I want to," he replied, his smile soft. "I want to know you, Javier." But Marcus wasn't done. He released a final blow, a recorded phone call where Ethan admitted the engagement was strategic. The audio was edited, but the damage was catastrophic. The board called another meeting, and this time, Evelyn wasn't playing. "Step down, Ethan," she said, her voice ice, "or we'll force you out." I watched him fight, his voice steady but his hands shaking. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, "and neither is Javier." He grabbed my hand, and I realized I wasn't just a prop anymore. I was his partner, fake or not. We left the meeting in silence, the city blurring past us in a cab. "I'm sorry," Ethan said finally. "I dragged you into this, and now you're paying for it." I shook my head. "I stayed because I wanted to, because I care about you." The words slipped out, raw and true. His eyes widened, and for a moment I thought he'd bolt. Instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. Not for show, but for us. The kiss was tentative, then desperate, like we were both drowning and saving each other. The next day, we faced the press together, no script, no PR team. Ethan took the mic, his voice steady. "I'm not perfect. I made mistakes and I hurt people. But Javier, he's real. And what I feel for him is real." My heart stopped. Was this part of the act? But his hand found mine, squeezing tight, and I knew it wasn't. The crowd murmured, cameras flashed, but all I saw was him. For the first time, I believed we could be more than a lie. Marcus faded into the background, his threats losing power as Ethan's honesty won over the public. Ex-posts shifted, calling us brave, authentic. But the board wasn't swayed. They gave Ethan an ultimatum: resign or face a vote of no confidence. He had 1 week to decide. That night, on his penthouse balcony, I asked, "What are you going to do?" He looked at me, eyes soft. "I don't know. But I know I don't want to lose you." My chest tightened. This was bigger than a contract now, and I was terrified of falling, of breaking, of believing in him. The week was a countdown to Ethan's decision, each day heavier than the last. We spent it together, not as CEO and fake fiancé, but as two people untangling their truths. We walked through Prospect Park, sharing stories, his childhood in Chicago, my summers in Puerto Rico. He laughed when I described my abuela's cooking, and I saw the boy he'd been before the world hardened him. "You make me want to be better," he said one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to respond, so I kissed him instead, the city lights blurring around us. The board's deadline loomed, but Ethan wasn't the same man who'd hired me. He started opening up to his team, admitting his fears, his mistakes. They rallied around him, and even Evelyn softened, impressed by his vulnerability. But the real test came at a press conference, the final chance to save his company. I stood backstage, heart pounding, as Ethan took the stage. "I built Blackwood Innovations to change the world," he said, his voice steady. "But I almost lost myself doing it. I'm gay, I'm in love, and I'm not hiding anymore." He looked at me, and I knew he meant it. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some gasping. But Ethan stood tall, unapologetic. The board backed off, swayed by the public support and Ethan's newfound strength. Marcus's leaks lost their sting. drowned out by a wave of ex-posts praising Ethan's courage. But the real victory wasn't the company, it was us. That night, in his penthouse, Ethan pulled me close. "I don't want this to end," he said, his voice breaking. "Not the contract, not you." I took a breath, the ring on my finger no longer a prop but a promise. "Then don't let it," I said, and we kissed, the weight of the world falling away. Months later, we were still together, no cameras, no lies. I opened my cafe, Morales Brew, with Ethan's support, not as a payout but as a partner. He stepped back from the CEO role, taking an advisory position to focus on us, on himself. The world still watched, but we didn't care. We'd built something real, something worth fighting for. On a quiet evening in the park, under the same oak tree where we'd once posed for cameras, Ethan knelt again. This time there was no audience, no script, just him, me, and a question that changed everything. I said yes, not for his image, but for our future. The journey wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, doubts, moments when I wondered if I was enough for a man like Ethan. But every time he looked at me, I saw the truth. We were enough for each other. Our love, born in a lie, had become the most honest thing in my life. And as we stood together, hand in hand, I knew we'd face whatever came next, together.